Parents, gather around, come listen up. This is going to be so incredibly valuable. So I have Jill Urbane with me today. She's an early childhood interventionist, a master in social work, parent coach, and the founder of the Mentor Mom LLC. So we are talking about, and who's ever experienced meltdowns with your little ones? Drop me a meltdown. Sassy kids with, talking back, and your kid's not listening. So we're going to talk about three huge topics here that I think Jill's going to be able to help us with big time. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to drop them and she'll address them. So Jill, thank you so much for being with me here today. So which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with talking about meltdowns.
Okay, go for it.
So, I always like to kind of discern with parents the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum and the relationship between the two. So, tantrums usually come as a result of giving a limit or something not going a child's way, right? Meltdowns are usually related to being overwhelmed by things that are going on around them. So, for some kids, it can be that it's really, really noisy in a room or they're overly tired. I mean, meltdowns are just kind of a big blob of different things melted together. And so, in both of those scenarios, though, whether it's a tantrum or a meltdown, what's happening is brain is in the middle of emotion, right? I'm angry and frustrated because you said no. I'm in the basement part of my brain, right? Where it's all feelings. I'm overwhelmed because the dog is barking and the TV won't turn on and this is going on and that's going on and I'm hungry and I'm tired. My brain is in the basement part of the brain where I'm all doing the feeling. So that's one thing I always want parents to be aware of what's going on with the brain during these meltdowns and these tantrums. Because a lot of times, in my experience, as somebody who's worked with toddlers and preschoolers, because they go down to that downstairs brain all the time as
Mm.
well, right? Sometimes we think, wow, they've got all these words. They should be able to talk this out. They should be able to listen better. When the brain is flooded with emotions, whether it's from the tantrum and the frustration or from just being overwhelmed, tired, and all of those other factors, either way, the brain isn't going to be able to calm down or listen or hear or learn in that moment. So, when we have a meltdown with a little one or a tantrum, our biggest thing is we need to get the brain back to a calm state. Angry, overwhelmed brains do not learn, right? Think about it. Like when I'm angry, the last thing I want is somebody trying to teach me something. I want them to leave me alone. I need to calm down, right? And it's the same for our little ones. So our big priority during those moments needs to be to calm them down. And so the key is that we have to be the calm in their chaos. Okay, we need to be the one to model the energy of what it is that we want to get from our kids. And what happens a lot of times for parents with young kids is our kids are up here screaming and hollering. Well, we start to get up there with our emotions, right? And they stay right there. We need to bring it down, calm it down. So I always like to tell parents when they go high, you need to go low. When they're screaming and hooting and hollering, we need to be very quiet. We need to minimize our talk. We need to take it down a notch so that we're not already overwhelming an already overwhelmed brain and system. Okay, so I
That's
always,
great.
yeah, try whispering. A lot of times that,
Yeah.
and especially with preschoolers, when they start to escalate and you start to say, oh, you seem really mad right now, then they'll be
Yeah.
like, I am.
Yeah. So I love that because just that one simple thing. So yeah, keeping yourself calm. And then I love that little whispering. It's like it just takes you right down. Like even when you just did, I was like,
Yeah, you want to lean in, right?
yes, yes.
Our little ones are expecting us to raise our voices above their voices and to stay
Right.
up there. Be the energy that you want from your child. I hate using this analogy, but it really is the best fit. It's with young kids, it's a lot like training a dog, right? It's a lot of behavioral kinds of things. Our interventions, it's about body language and
Posture, right?
our tone of voice more than the actual words that are coming out of our mouths.
Yes, yes, I believe that because I remember my mother-in-law. I mean, she really didn't have to say too many words. You knew what she was thinking just by her posture. So, And kids are so sensitive to our energy. That's the thing. They're so intuitive and so sensitive to our energy. So I love that. So keeping yourself calm, and then, okay. So move on. Let's do the
The
next one.
Well, and so kind of keeping in that vein, the next one is to minimize your talk, your touch, and your eye contact
Ooh,
during. So
okay.
keeping in mind again that 93% of communication is our body language and tone of voice. Only 7% is actually our vocabulary. Less talk, more action, right? And just keeping and minimizing the talk, the touch, and the eye contact, because the brain is overwhelmed. I'm flooded with emotions. When we're doing too much talking and touching, we're continuing to pour sensory input into the brain that is already struggling to process what's going on.
So what would you do other than, like, let's say this kid is kicking and screaming because you took away a toy. So give us the scenario of how you would act in that scenario.
Okay, so it depends on the situation. So if a little one in that scenario is kicking and screaming because I took a toy away, I'm just going to get up and move away from him,
Okay.
right? I'm just going to get up and move away. If he's not hurting himself or hurting anything else or pulling things off of shelves and throwing things at people, I'm just going to get up and walk away, using my body language by walking away to let him know, when you throw yourself down on the ground and start screaming, I don't want to be around you. I'm going to go over here. When you calm down and stop that, I am right back there with you going, there's my sweet boy. Let's go
So,
outside and play.
so you're not articulating, when you're feeling better, I'll come back. You're not saying a word. You're just walking away.
It depends on what the parent wants to do. Sometimes what I'll
Mhm.
do is say, ooh, that's really loud. I'm going to go over here to let them know that's a lot. Or I'll come see you when you're sweet. It really depends on what phrase, but the key is with that, you want to use the same phrase over and over and over.
Ooh.
Kids will recognize when my mom says A, I'm going to get B. She's going to walk away. This is her cue.
Oh,
When she,
that's good.
with my kids, I would be like, ooh, you're no fun to be around. I'll see you later. And I would just walk away.
And you keep it light and you don't make it like making them feel bad about it. I
Oh,
think that's so important too.
well, right.
Yeah.
We don't want to send a message that it's not okay to be angry and have those emotions. We want them to be, you can have that. You can do that. I'm not
Mhm.
going to be around you while you're screaming because you're mad because you didn't get something. Right now, if they're screaming or upset because maybe they fell down or they were maybe really frustrated because they were trying to get this toy to do something and
Mhm.
it didn't work out and they just kind of are a puddle on the floor, then you can go in again, trying to keep it quiet and calm and just say, do you need a hug? Right? Because that's not a tantrum
Right.
in that
Right.
situation. That's how I'm just overwhelmed and frustrated right now. So you want to, again, minimize the talk, the touch, and the eye contact when they're having a meltdown, because we don't want to overload them anymore. The strategy that I probably have used the most over the last 20 or so years, and used with my kids as well, is we just had a cool down area. So whether it was a tantrum where they were kind of escalating, or whether it was the meltdown because they were just really, really frustrated and nothing I had tried to do to intervene was helping, it was just making matters worse, which I hear from parents a lot. I try this and he hits me, and I try that and he screams at me or pinches me. If they're doing those things, we're doing too much, right? So
Mm.
I suggest to parents to set up a cool down zone somewhere in your house. It can be, I like using corners, not because I'm trying to put kids in corners. That's not why. I like using corners because you've got two walls right there, right? And so they don't have all sorts of sensory information.
Yeah.
Trying to
Mhm.
trying to make it a calm, quiet area. So setting up like if there's a little nook next to the couch that's near a corner, putting in some bean bags, some stuffed animals, a nice blanket, maybe a soft finger fidget, like those old micro bead pillows where they can just kind of,
Mhm.
and when they're upset, you say, oh, you can go over here and do that. When you're all set, I'll come and get you, right? So you're just letting them know you can be angry here. You can kick and scream and all you want on these pillows and this bean bag and with
Mhm.
and stuff here. Once they start to calm down, and I always have to clarify for parents in the beginning, calming down for a toddler or a preschooler might be, they're not going to be like, okay, I'm ready. Right? We're not going to get there.
Right.
So you go over when they start to calm down, you say, there's my sweet boy. Now, do you need a hug? Let them sit in your lap, give them the love. If they start to escalate again, okay, you can do that over here. I'll come see you when you're all done with that. Right?
Wow. So it's not the timeout chair. It's not a
No.
timeout chair. No timeout chairs.
No, I am not a fan of timeouts because timeout, it's kind of negative sounding, right? Like, are they really going to be able to discern with this timeout? Am I in a timeout because I'm having big emotions? You should be allowed to have big emotions. What we want to do is we really want to model boundaries. Like, I'm okay being around you when you're angry and upset, as long as you're not hitting me, biting me, screaming at me. I'm not going to be around you when you're that upset. You need to learn how to regulate and calm down, right? So you're really modeling how you take care of yourself as well, which then our kids learn from us, right? Like, I should be around people that are screaming at me or hitting me or biting me. But we're not saying that those emotions aren't okay. Does that make sense?
Right. Oh, yeah. It's so good. It's so powerful. I mean, we have to teach kids how to regulate their emotions, but it's not like making them feel bad about it. And that's, I think, what my generation of parents, when I was parented, not when I was parenting, because I understood that. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us grew up with that, and it creates bad self-worth, bad self-esteem, no confidence, like no control of our emotions. Like it's a recipe for disaster. So this is good stuff.
I think my big thing that I want parents to understand is if you understand what's going on with your little one's brain, right? What they can and can't handle, that's the first step. That's our foundation, right? Because then when we're coming up with our interventions and our strategies to deal with these difficult and challenging behaviors, we're making sure that the things that we're doing match where they are developmentally.
Yes.
We can't expect a 2-year-old to just calm down like that right away. They have to learn. It takes practice. It takes our support. It takes our coaching, right? So once we understand what's going on with their brains, then we can institute those developmentally appropriate expectations. And then we can model and coach so that eventually they will learn how to self-regulate. That when I'm upset, I know that I can go someplace quiet. Like, I'll share that, like, with our kids, the cool down zone was the bedroom. It wasn't a timeout. Again, I want to be clear about that. It wasn't a timeout. It was more when they were like 3 and 4. When they were toddlers, we just had you could sit on the couch or over here on the beanbag. But when they were more like preschoolers, it was the bedroom. If they'd be like, Sassy, which we'll talk about Sassy in a moment. But if they were really having those big emotions, why don't you go up to your room and calm down? And then when you're all done with that, we can talk about it if you want. And so they would go up to their room, and parents would say, well, what are they learning? They're up there playing for an hour. If they're learning, if they come out of that room in a better mood than when they went into it, I don't care what they're doing up there. It's not a punishment. I'm not taking toys away. I just want you to realize when you're screaming at me, you can go up to your room and scream in there. Scream all you want, so that they are recognizing that I'm saying you can have those big emotions, but you can't scream at me or hit me or do these things. So that's it. The last one is when that meltdown ends, don't lecture. Now, you know why you had to go in the calm down zone. You know what was going on there. When you do that, the child takes the focus off of what they did, what they were doing, and they start focusing on our reaction to it. We don't want to do that, right?
Wow.
Now, I will add, if they have maybe hit somebody, right? And we don't want them to think that hitting is okay. Once they have regulated and are back down to their normal, calm, happy selves, so maybe 20 minutes later, they're outside, we're running, we're doing bubbles and having a good time. They're happy. They land over on your lap and say, hey, remember when you hit me in the face a little while ago? That really hurt. Maybe you should tell mommy you're sorry. And that's when you get a real apology. I'm sorry, mommy. I didn't mean to do that. When we try to do those things and have those discussions when the brain is still just starting to calm down, we're not really teaching them anything other than if you hurry up and say this word, I'm going to let you go, right? You know, if you say you're sorry for hitting me, sorry. They don't really mean it. They're just like, oh, this is just a part of this process. I need to be done with this ugly feeling that I got going on yet.
Wow, that's really, really good. So good. Boy, you really have to learn this stuff, and then once you learn it, life is smooth. I mean, as smooth as it can be when you're raising kids. There's always challenges along the way, but
Yeah.
But I love that what you're saying about meeting the expectation, like developmentally, not expecting them to understand things like based on their development. Like it's important to know that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
how would you know that? That's why parent coaches are so important. I mean, I took a lot of parenting classes when my kids were growing up, but I'm telling you what, I'm learning a lot just, and I'm going to need that too with my grandkids coming along. But so good, such great information. All
Yeah.
right.
And we know so much about the brain now. It's like it's one of our super tools that we can use as parents. To me, I'm all about working smarter, not harder. And when you understand what's going on with your children's brains at the different ages, and there's tons of great books out there on it, it makes it so much easier to be more effective with what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Less frustrating for you and for your child.
Right, right. And so much happier and smoother and more
Yeah,
harmony. Like that's what we want, right? It
harmony.
doesn't have to be this hard. I mean, it's hard, but it doesn't have to be this hard.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is less is more in so many cases,
Mhm.
especially with children. Less is more. Less talking. We talk way too much to toddlers and preschoolers during the process of trying to
Mm,
and emotional regulation, and it just backfires, and they get frustrated, and we get frustrated. So less is more for sure.
wow. But that's different as we get into the older years. We'll have to come back and do the older years for sure, because I want to learn some more about that too.
You
All
betcha.
right. So are we done with the meltdowns? And okay, so we want to move on to what?
Let's talk sassy kids,
Okay.
because what happens is with young kids, we got tantrums, right? And toddlers do a lot of hitting and biting and all of those kinds of things. Then we move into the preschool years, right? I'm learning how to use all of these great words, and they go through the same kind of experiential kinds of things with words that they did with the hitting and the physical piece. So that's always something I want parents to understand, right? That, we teach our toddlers not to hit, pinch, bite, and all of that kind of stuff. But now they've got all these words. So now they're like, okay, well, let me try this. I hate you. You're mean. I don't love you. Right. They get sassy, not
Mm,
because they mean any of those things. They're just exploring, like our toddlers did with their bodies, what they can do with these words. Right. So it's the same kind of thing. And they're going to say some awful stuff. I'll never forget when our son, he was like 3, he one day just said, I hate you. And of course, my response was like, oh, how could you say that to me? Blah, 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 blah. And what did I teach him in that moment? He was like, ding, ding, ding. That got a big reaction. So guess what?
mm,
All the time, because I had reinforced it by responding the way I did to it. Right. So they're learning about the power of words. So with sassy kids, you do not want to argue with kids when they're being sassy, because you're just keeping this communication going. You just want to be nip it in the bud, disengage with your sassy kid using a repetitive statement. Like an example, the one that I use with my kids a lot of times and with the preschoolers that I've worked with is, I don't hang out with kids that talk to me that way. I'll see you later. And I'd walk away. Or I'd say, oh, you're no fun to be around. Go on up to your room. Come on out when you can be sweet. Right. So you're modeling again how you take care of yourself. I
mm.
hang out with kids that are talking to me that way, but I'm not getting angry. You don't talk to me that way. Right. Because what happens with that, they're like, ooh,
So now we're in a power struggle.
exactly. And their little brains are just they're wired to try to win those battles. Right. So you want to, again, be that calm in the chaos, which is not easy to do. I found the threes and fours way more difficult than two, way more difficult because it was just constant until you find that those tools, those one liners that you can say every single time. And then that becomes like, you don't even have to really think about it. Like if you have a debater, for example, my son was a debater. I always said I should have named you, but if I could, if you'll just let me, I just gotta, because that's all that came out of his mouth. Can I have no, we're going to be having dinner in about 15 minutes, but I just need to, I'm really hungry. If you'll just let me. And I'd be like, no, I said, no, no, you can't. No, we're going to eat. We're going to, and it was just this constant. So my one liner was from the Love and Logic program. I said, I love you too much to argue with you. But mom, blah, blah, blah. I love you too much to argue with you. I love you too much to argue with you. It took very little energy on my part to keep saying that. I could have said it twice. It got to the point where as soon as I said that phrase, he'd say, I hate it when you say that. And he would walk away.
But he knew.
He knew.
That's the thing. If you backtrack, if you say no, and then they just keep pushing, and then you say yes, then you're done. The battle is done.
And that's why they keep pushing. As long as you continue to engage with me with this no, I'm going to wear you down, because I think still win it. When you use the broken record technique, I know a lot of your listeners out there will not remember the days of the phone solicitors calling and you being like, no, thank you, I'm not interested. No, thank you, I'm not interested. No, thank you, I'm not interested, until they would finally be done with you. It's the same concept. You just one statement over and over and over until your debater just says, okay, I'm done. I give up. And with your sassy kids, you're just disengaging. That's it. Quickly send them someplace else in the house. It could be up to their room, or remove yourself from the situation. You want them to realize, when I start yelling or being sassy or disrespectful to my parents, don't take it personally. They're just trying. That's the number one rule of parenting. Don't take anything they do personally. They're just trying to figure out their world. So when they say it, quickly just, I don't hang out with kids that talk to me that way. I'll see you later, and disengage quickly. Don't dilly-dally. Quickly. Either send them away quickly, or you get up and move away quickly. You want it to be like, they're like, what just happened there? What? My mom just got up and walked away from me. And if they're following you, bip, 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 right, bip, 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 after you, go into the bathroom and shut the door. Don't keep saying it, though. Just say, I don't hang out with kids who talk that way to me, and just move away.
Wow. And I think that's teaching them something even more important about how you allow people to treat you. And that lesson is going into those older years, which is so important.
It is. And that's what I love about these strategies, is you're modeling how you take care of yourself. Right? That they're going to carry that into the world. So if somebody's disrespectful and sassy to them later on in the school environment or in a work environment, they're automatically going to be remembering back in the day, right? Because you can say, that's the cool thing about the strategy, like these broken record strategies. This will work well into teenagehood. Same things, right? They're going to know when somebody's talking that way to me that I shouldn't have people yelling at me. And I can just say to them, oh, I'm not going to be around you right now. You're really upset, and walk away, because they know this is not an acceptable interaction with another person, because
I love
it with them.
So important. What a great, great strategy. I love it. Awesome. All right. So we were going to talk about also how to get your kids to listen. Oh. This is a good one, right? Because everybody, how many times did you say that? Or do you hear parents say that? I can't get my kid to listen. Why won't he listen?
And parents are going to be like, this is a lot of work. What I'm going to tell you is a lot of work. Getting kids to listen requires hard work on your part on the front end, but it's going to make your life easier on the back end.
Yes. Yes.
The biggest thing, all right, and I'm going to go through the steps. The first thing is we need to give the direction only once, right? So if we're telling our child to go throw something away, we're not going to say, throw that away. Can you go throw that away? Hey, go throw that away. Go throw that away. When we do that and keep saying it over and over, we're teaching them they don't have to listen. When do they finally stop? When we get up and move towards them. That's when they carry out the action most of the time. So, for example, I had a little girl many years ago who I was on a visit, and she was probably about 2, and she was jumping on a glass coffee table in the living room. And mom was sitting on the couch. I was sitting on a different couch. And, as a home visitor, it's the family's home. They have their own set of rules. Some things they're going to be okay with that maybe I as a mom would not have been okay with, but it's not my place as a home visitor to judge anything that anybody is doing in their home, right? So I just said to the mom, I said, are you okay with her jumping on the glass table? And she's like, no, I don't want her to jump on the glass table. I've told her hundreds of times not to jump on that table, and she doesn't listen to me. And I said, well, can you show me what you do, and maybe I can give you some ideas on a different way that make have better outcomes for you? And she's like, absolutely. And so I'm just going to say the little girl's name was something like Josie, right? So she was like, Josie, get off the table. Josie, stop. Josie. And of course, Josie's just jumping up and down, looking at her mom, laughing and giggling, right? And I don't know how many times she said it. And finally, she looked at me and she said, see, she doesn't listen to me. And I said to her, well, I have to ask you which one of those you actually meant. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, if that was a dog chewing on a shoe, what would you have done? And she's like, well, I would have gotten up and I would have taken the shoe away and said, no chew. And I said, right. Well, you must have said, don't jump to her about 20 or 30 times, but there was never anything else paired with it, right? You didn't, why would you get up right away for the dog to do it, but not to get her off of the glass table? And she was kind of like, I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. And this again goes back to what I said earlier about the 93% of communication being language and tone of voice, right? So I said, can I try? And she's like, go for it. And I looked at the little girl and I said, off the table. And she looked at me and started to jump again. And I just got up, moved her over and said, thank you, as I lifted her off the table. Right. So we had mom practice this. It got to the point where as soon as mom stood up to say, get off she scurried off the table. Mom didn't even have to finish the sentence because she knew mom is up and moving towards me. That means that she means that I can't do this anymore. So that's the thing. Give the direction once, and then you need to follow through. And your follow through should start while you're giving the direction in the beginning with young kids, right?
Wow.
So if they're touching the TV and you say, we're not going to touch the TV, right? You should be up because you know that 2-year-old is going to be like, I'm going to keep touching that TV. As soon as you say, we're not going to touch the TV, or you can touch other things with your hands, you need to be up, moving towards them and move them away and then say, thank you.
Wow. So good.
Yeah.
So good. So simple, but so effective.
Well, and so here's one more tip to go with that. If you're going to give the direction, make sure that when you give it, you're going to be ready to follow through. So if you want your child to, let's say, put the dish in the sink after your meal, and you know that they're probably not going to do it, you have to be prepared to follow through. Okay. So don't give that direction if you're like, I don't feel like getting up and having him walking him through the sink, then don't give the direction. So you have to have the follow through. Don't tell them to not touch the TV if you're not going to get up and stop them if they continue to do it, which they will. Right.
Right.
So when we need to use physical prompts, walk them through it. So we call it teach me, right? Where we walk them through it, show me, where we point to it, and then tell me, where we just say it. If you start with physical prompts, when you say, go get your shoes, and your kid looks at you like, I'm not getting my shoes. And you say, yeah, we're getting our shoes. And you go over and you help them pick up their shoes, and you do that every single time, they're going to know. As soon as you move towards them, when you say, go get your shoes, they're like, oh, she's going to make me do it anyhow. I might as well. My mom, what she means what she says, and does what she says she's going to do.
Yeah. So simple, right? But you got to do it. Like, I love what you said. Like, if you're not going to follow through, then don't bother saying it, because then they're going to continue to test and test and test. They have to know. I mean, that it's so simple and it can be challenging. But once you do it, then it's like there's no more battles. It's like they know that whatever you say, you're going to follow through with. So they better follow through.
Exactly. And that's how we turn them into good listeners, right? That's how we get them to the point where they're understanding more and they're following through more. And one more thing that I forgot to mention is, if you attach please to a direction, you are implying that there's a choice, right? That, could you pick those up, please? After this little girl threw a bunch of stuff around the room, the dad said, could you pick that up, please? And she looked at him and she said, no, right? Because please implies that maybe there's a choice. Like if my boss said to me, could you please stay late tonight? We're really, really needing some extra hands. I'd be thinking to myself, well, I got a little bit of wiggle room. I think that maybe that's an option. I'd be like, I don't know. I got a lot of stuff going on. I can't.
Mm.
Came to me and said, you need to stay late tonight. We need to finish this project. I'd be like, oh, I'm staying late tonight. That doesn't sound, she's still saying it in a nice voice, just assertive. You need to stay late tonight to finish this project. I would be like, oh, so.
So how would you say that if the child is throwing, has made a huge mess and, well, again, you don't want a toddler to pick up you know what I mean? You want to do it with them because that's not realistic to
Right.
think that they could pick up all this stuff. But let's say they say, no, I'm not picking it up, or they don't start to do that motion of picking things up, then what were the words that you would use?
So I would phrase my direction to them differently. I would just say, pick up the toys. I wouldn't say, can you pick them up, please? Because if I say pick up the toys and they say no, I'm just going to go over and say, we are picking up the toys. And I'm going to do hand over hand. We're going to pick up a couple of toys. Maybe we don't pick up all of them. I don't know. It depends on my mood and what's going on, right? But we're going to make them pick up some of the toys that maybe they, right? So that they realize when I give the direction, pick up the toys, put that away, throw that in the trash can. When I say it, I mean it, and you're going to do it one way or the other.
So good. So good. All right, Jill, this was great. So valuable. Is there a way that we can get a hold of you that you can put in the comments when we're done here, how people can get a hold of you, and tell us about like what you do. Do you do group coaching, one-on-ones? Like tell us what resources that you have.
Well, so I have a YouTube channel where I share lots of information on raising children under the age of 5. So you can find that under The Mentor Mom. I have a website, thementormomblog.com, where all of my other social media links are as well. And I will be sharing with you a link to a little handout that people can access that kind of talks about the tips that I went over today. And I have a lot of different programs. I have a program to help parents who have toddlers with speech delays that they can do at home to get their kids communicating and using words. I've just started the Mentor Mom Academy, which is a membership program where I'll do group coaching and lives with folks, kind of like what you're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
Questions and things like that. And I do a limited number of one-on-one coaching.
Wonderful. So is that a group that you're saying that you'll do, or is that like a Zoom people? Is that what it is? More of a Zoom registration type of thing?
It's actually kind of like an online community. So
Okay.
a Facebook group where there
Oh,
will
it
be
is.
live Q&As, access to some
Perfect.
resources, and over time here, bringing in professionals on different topics related to children birth to age 5.
Love it. Perfect. All right. So when we're done, you can put all the information in the comments of this video so people know how to get a hold of you.
Will
All
do.
right, Jill, this was awesome. I learned a bunch of stuff. I got my tools in place now for my grandchildren. I mean, we all make mistakes, right? We all do the best we can, but the more information and education we have is going to bring more harmony into the home, period. End of story, for sure.
Well, and I always
Yeah.
say that it's parenting self-confidence. When we don't have tools in our toolbox, that's when we feel overwhelmed and unsure about our skills and abilities, and we're worried we're going to mess our kids up for life, right? The more tools you put in your toolbox and the more you practice with those tools, even when the things come further on down the road, you already have tools in your toolbox that you can go to that you can tweak for the different ages and stages as they grow
Right.
old.
Right, right. I love it. I love it. It's so important. I mean, we don't want to have conflict with our kids. Nobody wants that. But there are certainly effective ways and loving ways to do it. So
Absolutely.
I love this. This was great. Thank you so much for being with me here today. And we'll do another one maybe on older kids.
I would love to. Thank you for having me.
All right. It was great. Thank you. All right. See you soon.